Okay, this lesson is going to be relatively short. What we did in the last lesson was all these left-handed inequalities, and we noticed that inequalities are represented on a graph, and there's a boundary line that tells us the difference between points that are not solutions and points that are solutions, or a half that has solutions and not solutions. The easiest way to graph them is to graph the boundary line where the two expressions are equal to each other, and then test a point on one half of that line to see if it works and shade that side. So the boundary line is where they're equal, and then test a point to find out which side of that boundary line to shade. We do that in all cases. The only thing we're going to investigate in this next part is something called restrictions. So if you were restricted to, for example, right here, so these are called restrictions. This will be visited in the key ideas a little bit more specifically, but these are integers. So instead of shading this solution region, this half can only include integers, and integers are whole numbers, positive or negative. So the integers here, and you'll see this, the only solutions would be these points. Anything between the points would not be solutions because they aren't integers. So the difference between these two solutions, and I'll just put etc. here, that this would only include the points, but not between the points like this first one without restrictions would. Next set, so it's exactly the same problem. You'll notice here this inequality is exactly the same as this inequality. The only difference is, again, that the restrictions here are that the solution region is restricted to integers. So in this one where it's shaded is different in the sense that this guy here where it's restricted to integers would only include the whole number of points, positive and negative. So this would be the solution region here, and you wouldn't be able to shade. You would just have to show that all the points here are solutions, but not the points in between them. So you'd put dots on all the integers. In the next one, again, same thing. You'll notice here that it says integers. So again, the solution region would be in the same half, but it wouldn't be shaded. It doesn't include all points, it includes just integer points. So this solution region, you'd still do test points, you'd still do boundary regions. The last thing is just to include the restrictions, and the restrictions here would be integers. So everything, all of these points would be included, just not the points between them, because you only want to include the integer points. The last restriction that I'll show here is W means whole numbers, and that is restricted to only positive. Whole numbers are positive integers. That'll be useful in word problems because you can't sell a negative number of skis or a negative number of snowboards. So if we were looking here, that means that none of these negative areas would be shaded, and only this, where the solution regions are, only the integers, positive integers in quadrant 1 would be solutions. Okay? And that has to do with restrictions, and that's the end of that particular lesson. So we've learned how to graph them, graph inequalities. Now we just, in some cases, have to apply restrictions to the solution region.